From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Flooding the fields.
And we are catching young crawfish.
The latest from Louisiana as farmers kick off the crawfish season. As voters head to the polls to decide key ballot issues, including a carbon capture pipeline project, the race for president, and the impact on agriculture.
We have industry looking to shut down production of biofuel.
What's at stake right now on AgDay?
AgDay is brought to you by Pioneer. Great performance in the field makes Pioneer brand corn #1 in America. For a winning season, it's Pioneer brand corn. Your best year starts here.
Good morning, I'm Michelle Rook. Clinton is on assignment. It's election day and it's being met with heavy rain and severe weather, which is continuing to move east. That's after threats of tornadoes, damaging winds, and flooding to the southern plains and Midwest on Monday. Laura Aguirre has the latest.
I looked outside and within like 5 seconds, all hell broke loose.
Shane Barker and his dog are among many tornado survivors in Oklahoma City. The National Weather Service says at least 5 twisters, 2 of those powerful EF3 strength, tore through parts of the state overnight Saturday into Sunday. Many residents only had seconds to scramble to safety in the dark, awakened by warnings sent to their cell phones.
I could only see when there was flashes of lightning, like as we were going, but it was just random things like moving.
One of those things was a neighbor's boat, which landed in Katie Anderson's backyard. By the light of day, the full scope of the devastation came into focus. Several homes and businesses flattened or heavily damaged.
It was war zone. The whole roof was just rolled into a burrito, basically.
At least one school lost a good portion of its roof. The state's governor announcing Sunday there's an emergency declaration for 6 counties, and officials are working to ensure all polling places have power ahead of Tuesday's presidential election. There was no relief for the region Monday, with thunderstorm, tornado, wind, and large hail threats persisting from southern Texas up into western Illinois. And through Election Day, the Storm Prediction Center is tracking rainfall between 1 and 3 inches across the central and midwestern U.S., including Wisconsin and Michigan, 2 closely watched swing states. I'm Laura Aguirre reporting for AgDay.
So what's on the minds of producers as we head into the election? Farm Journal's Tyne Morgan has the latest look at the Ag Economist Monthly Monitor.
Harvest is winding down across the Midwest, and for some, it went quick.
This is shaping up to be one of the faster harvests we ever experienced from start to finish.
This time of year, prices typically set lows, but this year, some commodities have come to life.
Well, I think over the last month, we've seen a little bit of a rebound, a stabilization of prices, if you will. Some of that's simply been fund short covering that has supported that. Some of it is a little better long-term picture for wheat and for corn, although for soybeans, it's still looking somewhat bleak long-term.
Suderman says because of that, the short-term outlook has improved. The latest Ag Economist Monthly Monitor reflected that, with sentiments among economists seeing slight improvements this month.
We could have told you 2-3 years ago that after a period of high prices, eventually we were going to have, recovery in production, and that was going to suppress prices, probably more than input costs. We knew that. So I think, when you take into account expectations heading into the year, has it deteriorated more than expectations? Probably not. We just know that we're worse today than where we were.
When you look at what could impact both livestock and row crop producers over the next 6 months, a major wild card is interest rates. The October survey asked economists how far interest rates need to fall to find economic stability for farmers. 46% said 2%. But even with the Fed cutting their benchmark interest rate last month, interest rates have actually gone up, not down.
The 2-year break-even inflation rate is what the market trades its expectations of what inflation is going to average over the next 2 years. And over the last 6 weeks or so, we have seen it jump a full percentage point. That is a significant short-term jump, saying that reinflation fears are coming back in a hurry.
Suderman points out the Fed can influence mid and longer term rates, but they can't control them. And its concerns about inflation pushing those rates back up again.
I think longer term, what I'm looking for is in return to the interest rates that we saw in the 90s and early 2000s. But I think there's going to be a lot of volatility in getting there.
Ahead of the presidential race, the Monthly Monitor asked economists which presidential candidate will be more effective at taming inflation. 54% said Donald Trump. When it comes to providing more certainty on farm policy and crop insurance, 62% of economists said Trump will provide that. But when it comes to policies that benefit biofuels, 54% of economists said Harris. And today, it's no clarity on 45Z that's causing soybean processors like Cargill and Bunge to possibly slow or even idle production by the end of the year.
We have industry looking to shut down production of biofuel if we don't get the 45Z requirements here released soon, and that doesn't look likely, unfortunately. That's going to hurt demand for soybean crushing, for soybeans per se.
The fact that we don't have those today, I think, is impeding investment in the sector. And people are asking for that before they spend millions of dollars to do that. And I think that has been a hiccup.
Reporting for AgDay, I'm Tyne Morgan.
Thanks, Tyne. Tyne and Clinton talking ahead of the election with Farm Journal. Washington analyst Jim Wiesmeyer is part of our Unscripted podcast. Wiesmeyer says this year early voting may be a key element. He says more Republicans have voted early this year, and the group discussed why so many people voted before the election day this year.
Maybe because of the statistic I said. You know, if you put all your eggs in one day, I'm going to guarantee you all those people will not vote. It tends to be a lot longer lines. I know we had in Leesburg, Virginia, where I voted early, they said they had about 1,500 a day there going in. Wow. Yeah, 1,500 a day.
You can listen to much more of Tyne and Clinton's conversation with Jim Wiesmeyer by checking out the latest Unscripted podcast on our Farm Journal YouTube page. Among the issues on the ballot, South Dakota voters will decide the future of a controversial $8.9 billion carbon capture pipeline project. The referendum, known as Referred Law 21, will determine whether to keep or repeal a recently passed law that critics say favor pipeline developers, particularly Summit Carbon Solutions. The pipeline also runs near farmer Walt Bone's farm southwest of Sioux Falls. He says the Landowner Bill of Rights passed by the state legislature ensures farmers are treated fairly. He says the ethanol industry won't go away without a pipeline, but it will be a lower value, high carbon fuel.
If you could lower the carbon score of that bushel of corn, now 1 gallon of ethanol is worth about 27% more than the other one, just by lowering the score. And so it's an amazing opportunity for us.
Farmers opposed to the pipeline, like Bruce Burkhardt, have spoken out about the safety of the pipeline. But the big issue is the infringement on private property rights through eminent domain.
First piece of paper I got from a pipeline company on the front page was eminent domain. And I felt bullied, you know, and I felt intimidated. And so and it's a private company, and so eminent domain was never meant for private companies. That's eminent domain for private gain, giving up my rights, how I want to use my land, so somebody else can make money.
A repeal would mark a significant setback for the 2,500-mile pipeline, which runs through multiple states, including Iowa, Nebraska, and Minnesota. Summit insists it will continue to pursue the project regardless of the vote outcome. However, the bottom line is if the law is repealed, Summit's ability to proceed with the project could be jeopardized, as South Dakota is a critical part of the 5-state plan. It looks like more rain is on the way for the Midwest today, while areas of the West could see some snow. Meteorologist Alyssa Heilman joins us with an update.
That's right. There's a cold front. You can see here temperatures this afternoon, a cold front that's splitting the United States in half. And in front of that is a system that's bringing rain now to parts of the eastern and midwestern United States. You can see those warmer temperatures and a trough that's back here in the west, bringing cooler temperatures and snow in some of these areas. 43 in Salt Lake City, 42 in Billings, so 50s and 40s in the west. And then to the east, warmer temperatures. Of course, we're seeing 81 Cincinnati, 67 Chicago, 67 in St. Louis too. Again, warmer than average temperatures, much warmer than average than we'd normally expect to see in these Midwestern areas because of that ridge that is in the eastern half. And again, that cold front that's moving through, you can see it more distinctly here as we go later into tomorrow morning, seeing that very distinct cold front that's bringing some cooler temperatures as it moves more east, very cool back to the west. And then for tomorrow, again, seeing some cooler temperatures than we were seeing in the east as this cold front has already moved through. And when you finish harvest, sometimes you gotta just bust a move. Dave Costell celebrating the end of harvest with a dance on top of the combine in Manhattan, Illinois. Congrats, Dave. I'll have more on your forecast coming up.
More flash export sales of corn and soybeans to start the week. Was it enough to pull grains higher? I'll have a full market report coming up. And later, a world-renowned chef takes to Instagram to aid in the search for some stolen cheese. Grains ending mostly higher on Monday. Mark Schultz with North Star Commodity is back with analysis. And Mark, corn and soybeans continue to be pretty well supported here by export business, right?
Yeah, the export business, Michelle, has been extremely good here over the last 3 weeks. And I expect this week on the sales are going to be good once again. And I wouldn't be surprised if we're respectable the following week as well. So the business keeps coming in almost on a daily basis. Another 10.6 million bushels of corn announced over the weekend on sales. And the beans, I think 4.8 million bushels again of business being done. So good to see, and amazingly to see it that strong where we are with the currency at the present time. But I think a lot of it may be on ideas of getting some business done before uncertainty of what the U.S. election is outside possibility for the reason for that movement.
Absolutely. But if you look at a chart, we're pretty range bound in both corn and soybeans. We just can't get above some of these resistance areas either, right?
You are correct. And what's really kind of a disappointment to it is when you have this much on the sales, that you're still not able to make a significant move up as far as the futures are concerned.
No doubt. So what do you think will it take to break us out of that? Do we have to have a surprise in the report on Friday or what?
Maybe a combination of things here. I would think the report probably for starters might help us out a little bit, but you're going to have, to me, a surprise would be a corn yield going down 1 to 2 bushel per acre. That would be a surprise. The beans, I think, are going to go lower by a bushel per acre nationally. Maybe it goes more, but I think maybe a bushel on this go round that you go down. But when you look at it and extrapolate it all the way on out, it gets difficult because you're still talking on beans of 550 or 550 50 million bushel carryout. So hard to get it. You might get a market to move up to say 1030, 1040, maybe back to 1070. But to go much more than that, see beans over 11 is going to be pretty difficult to do unless you get a weather problem in South America.
All right, thanks for joining us, Mark Schultz, North Star Commodity. More Ag Day coming up. Watch Markets Now with Michelle Rook on the Farm Journal YouTube channel, keeping you updated throughout the day on the markets at the open, midday, and close. Find out what moved the markets today and what to expect the market to do next.
Starting here with our precipitation outlook for the next couple days, we see that cold front and that system that's in front of it bringing rain throughout the Midwest, even down into Louisiana and Arkansas as well. And as that cold front and that system continue to move east, bringing more rain to parts of Indiana, fully Indiana, Ohio, and even there's some rain in Florida up into Georgia and South Carolina as well. And then later, once that system moves out, we see it start to build more rain, Texas, areas of New Mexico, Oklahoma, Colorado as well. Again, that rain building there once this system makes its way east out of the United States. Now let's take a look at our jet stream. We've got, again, that trough and ridge system splitting the United States in half, this cold front here, and then to the west, that trough, cooler temperatures, and to the east, of course, this ridge bringing some unusually warm temperatures, but of course that cold front that's splitting the United States and bringing rain to the Midwest and then continuing to move east. Now, of course, this trough is trying to beat out the ridge here. This ridge of high pressure is strong, and really that trough tried to just move over it, and it didn't happen. Same thing thing happening here, trying to beat out that ridge as we go into next week and again start to see that that's not the case. It moves up and over the ridge that is pretty strong there of high pressure. Precipitation outlook, this is good news because of the drought monitor that came out last Thursday, putting a lot more areas in drought conditions, and we need this precipitation outlook that's wetter than normal for a lot of the United States. We need those wet conditions as we are seeing a lot of drought conditions expanding throughout the United States. It's also going to be warmer than normal, especially in the eastern areas, and then colder than normal in the western areas because of that trough ridge system we just looked at. Now let's take a look here at Maine, Arizona, high of 45, low of 21. Then we've got Utah, Illinois, high of 68, low of 61. Finally, Washington, Louisiana, high of 86, low of 73.
A world-famous chef is calling for followers to help solve a stolen cheese mystery. And last year was a tough one for the crawfish harvest in Louisiana. Are we seeing improvements this year? An update ahead in the country. Starbucks is a huge buyer of U.S. milk, but it is now making it cheaper for people to buy alternatives on its menu. The coffee chain announcing customers will no longer have to pay extra for adding non-dairy milk to their orders. The changes take effect this coming Thursday. Starbucks says customers who order non-dairy milk will now pay 10% less for their drink. It says non-dairy milk has become the second most common order modification at Starbucks, right behind adding a shot of espresso. A well-known chef is stepping in to try to help solve the case of the stolen cheddar.
There has been a great cheese robbery. Some of the best cheddar cheese in the world has been stolen. 22 tons worth has been stolen from some, I don't know, robbers that basically pretended to be a French supermarket.
That's British chef Jamie Oliver taking to Instagram to make his plea. It comes after one of the country's top cheese suppliers recently fell victim to a sophisticated scam. Our partners at dairyherd.com reporting on this. They say Neal's Yard of London revealed it had been approached by a fraudulent buyer posing as a legitimate wholesale distributor for a major French retailer. They discovered they had been scammed after it was too late. By then, the cheese had already been handed over to the fraudsters. Now, it's reported over 950 wheels of cheese were lost. Oliver telling his 10.5 million Instagram fans to be on the lookout for lorry loads of very posh cheese. Neal's Yard Dairy also says on Instagram there has been an arrest in connection with the theft. Coming up, it's time to flood the fields in Louisiana. The latest on how crawfish season is going down south in the country. Last year's exceptional drought was the primary culprit for this past spring's disappointing crawfish season. As LSU Ag Center's Craig Gautreaux reports, early indications are this year's season is off to a much better start.
Believe it or not, crawfish season has started. Producers in southwest Louisiana have been flooding their rice fields to encourage adult crawfish to emerge from their burrows with their hatchlings.
This year, we're seeing a lot more open burrows, which hopefully means crawfish have emerged with young hatchlings, recruits, and are now spreading out in the field.
Last year, Fontenot did not catch any young crawfish while sampling ponds until December. He is encouraged by what he is seeing now.
And we are catching young crawfish, also catching multiple sizes of crawfish, which is a good indicator that you'll have multiple generations, multiple sizes, so that you'll have a continuous catch.
Some crawfish producers are just beginning to harvest their second crop of rice out of fields that will then become their crawfish ponds. Harvesting a second crop can cause lower crawfish yields, but for rice and crawfish farmer Paul Zonbrecker, it can provide a benefit.
We actually have better crawfish, better sized crawfish in some of these second crop fields, and it allows us to have crawfish to mix later with some of the smaller stuff to make them profitable and make them sellable.
With above average temperatures throughout October, conditions have been good for both maturing rice and growing crawfish.
The crawfish should be growing, so hopefully we'll we'll see some crawfish hitting the markets at least by the first of the year this year.
Fontenot said there's been significant growth in crawfish acreage, and he expects to see nearly 400,000 acres in production this year. With the LSU Ag Center, this is Craig Gocher reporting.
Thanks so much, Craig. And that's all the time we have for this morning. Thanks for watching. For all of us here at AgDay, I'm Michelle Rook. Have yourself a great day.